Today I want to share with you one huge, big lie about starting over. And I want to share with you the truth about how you can become unstuck if you think that starting over is the answer. I'm going to give you the truth. So, starting over, I'm kind of an expert at it. Since high school, every time I got restless, I moved. And I'm not talking about just down the street or across town. I'm talking about across country to different countries, from one coast to the east coast to the west coast, from the mountains to the beach, to big cities, to rural towns. I've moved everywhere. And every single time, I brought such enthusiasm to those moves. I was absolutely certain that this was going to be the start of a whole new chapter of my life, and things were just going to be wonderful from here on out. And they were. I mean, gosh, isn't it exciting to move to a new town where you don't know anyone and no one knows you? I mean, think of the possibilities. You really do think I can be a whole new person here, a whole new, better version of myself. I get to decorate a new place. I get to go to new restaurants. I get to make new friends. And what an exciting life I'm going to have. Maybe now I'll finally find that husband, or maybe now I'll finally have that really fun group of friends. And probably for the first 6 months, maybe even the first year, it is exciting. And you do really feel like, wow, everything's going to change now. And then you realize something, well, the real truth. And I'm sure you've heard this saying before: wherever you go, there you are. I looked it up. It's apparently from Confucius. And it's absolutely the truth. Because wherever you go, if you don't make one big change, nothing changes. Because wherever you go, whether I went from Colorado to North Carolina, from the University of Michigan to New York City, from Lake Tahoe to Kyiv, Ukraine, these are all moves I actually made. From New York City to Seattle, Washington, another one of my moves. But the thing is, I kept bringing one thing along with me, and that is, of course, myself. And I wasn't changing. And for decades, I didn't realize that I needed to change. And maybe that's one of the things that comes with age and wisdom, is eventually you do realize that things are not going to change. You are not going to get unstuck unless you change. And getting unstuck and changing does not require moving across country or even across town. And I'm going to walk you through some of the changes I've made in my life that have been the most meaningful. I'll tell you the first one. I gave up alcohol about 8 years ago. It had been an issue my entire life. From the first time I drank rum and Coke in high school, and of course, drank too much of it and woke up the next morning with a terrible hangover and swore I'd never do that again, until I went to college, and you can imagine. And there was always a reason to keep drinking. Probably the biggest reason was just something in my genetics. I had a predisposition to that. But also because I was an introvert and I found social situations terribly uncomfortable. I felt very unself-confident, and I felt very awkward in social situations. I have spoken about this before, but I was never happy with the way I looked, and so I would drink to make myself feel more confident and feel prettier, and etc., etc. So it wasn't until my mid-50s I gave up alcohol for Lent. Now, this was not the first time. It was the third time that I gave up alcohol for Lent. But this time it stuck. And about halfway through Lent, I suddenly realized I felt great. I felt really great. My mind was clearer. My body felt terrific. And the depression that I have lived with all my life was not so much of an issue because I wasn't exacerbating my depression by drinking. And so I said to myself, Suzanne, if you feel better because you're not drinking, why would you start again when Lent ends? And so that time it worked. And I haven't had anything to drink since then. It has been one of the most valuable decisions I've ever made in my life. And I thank God for it. Okay, that's my personal thing. And that didn't entail moving anywhere. I stayed right there in Colorado. But let me talk about some other circumstances. There's a Bible verse. St. Paul writes in Romans 12:2, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Not relocating, renewed. And that's exactly where real change happens. And that's where getting unstuck happens in our mind. Like with my drinking example, it was simply a decision I had to make within my mind, not anybody else telling me to change, because obviously that hadn't worked if I was 50 years old when I finally made the decision. So it starts there. So now I'm going to give you 3 specific things, and these are probably more common. The first thing for me, and this is what real change looks like and how it happens. When I arrived in North Carolina, I started setting up my house, and I got a job. And I knew that one thing that was really going to have to change for me was my behavior around money. I had always lived with a lot of credit card debt and an attitude of buy now, pay later. That was my financial plan. And I realized that after the age of 60, that was a dumb financial plan. And especially because I am now living on a much more limited budget. My budget is much smaller. And if I didn't want to run myself into a hole that I could not dig out of, I was going to have to get my mind straight about money. And it didn't happen overnight. I'm still a work in progress. I have avoided debt, but there are weeks when my spending creeps up and I have to remind myself, Suzanne, you have a budget and you have to live within your means. And that means that If there's a big purchase I want, I need to save for it. And I can't have all the clothes and shoes that I would love to have. I used to change my wardrobe every fall and spring, summer. And I can't do that now. But the other thing is that I realized that, thankfully, I decided, you know what? I have my own style now. I figured out what looks good on me. And I've decided that I'm going to just live with my fashion sense instead of following fashion sense. Now, of course, it's much easier to do that when you're over 60 because, as they say, you know, women become invisible after the age of 60. But I still want to look good. I mean, but I'm learning how to do it in a practical way, you know, to buy less, have less. I don't need more. And honestly, making that decision it feels good because I realize that I am following myself. I'm being my own trend setter rather than following somebody else's trend. So that's first, money. I now plan out my budget before every paycheck. I figure out where my money has to go. I pay my bills on time. Money goes into savings. And then I say, okay, this much is left over. This is your mad money. This is where you can do whatever you want with this money, guilt-free. If you want to buy, I don't know. Well, these were given to me, but I have to share them. Peonies. They were given to me by my friend, and I love them. But I'm trying to think of something I would buy. I don't know. I love pens, books, journals. I love buying journals. So little things. But so what I'm saying is that now I can spend guilt-free because I have a budget. I've paid my bills first. I've paid my savings first. And anything left over, I can spend as I choose. And if I want to eat steak, if that's in my budget, I can eat steak. You see? Okay. The second thing is learning to do things for myself. I spoke in another video about how I decided to paint my front door. Now, I've never painted a front door. I don't particularly like painting interiors. I'm not a DIY person, but I really wanted my front door painted. And I wanted this beautiful, vibrant, like cherry red. I love it because I wanted more of a welcoming entranceway. And I couldn't afford to have it painted. It would have cost hundreds of dollars, I'm sure. So I spoke to my brother, John, who is a building contractor, retired now. And he sort of walked me through the steps over the phone because he's in Florida. And I did it. I did it. Now, is it perfect? Would John Anderson hire me to be a painter? No, thank you. No, I do not have a future in house painting. It's not going to be one of my career options. It's not perfect. As John says, you can see the brushstrokes. Yeah, but I love it. It's beautiful. I'm so proud of myself because I did it myself. I didn't wait. I didn't moan about, oh, I wish I had money to, get my door painted. I painted the door myself. And that's something that makes me really proud of myself because when you do something yourself, you build confidence. You're saying, I did that. You know, it's like with me learning how to bake sourdough. Am I a great sourdough baker? No, not at all. Never will be. Not interested in becoming a great sourdough baker. Do I enjoy baking a loaf of sourdough for me and my friend who gave me the flowers every week? Yes, I do. Because it makes me feel good and it's something I can do myself. All right, so that's number 2. Number 3, and this one's a little bit more difficult. Setting boundaries. You know, how many times do we do something because we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings? We go somewhere because we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. Or we let somebody say something to us that hurts our feelings because we don't want to hurt their feelings. I am slowly learning how to set boundaries and just say, no, that's not for me. No, thank you. No, thank you. And, you know, that's a really good, healthy way to live. Because you're being honest with yourself and you're being honest with other people. And you know what? I think people respect us a lot more when we're honest, because that means they can be honest with us too. And that's such a healthier way to live our lives and to have relationships with others. So, if you're feeling stuck today, I want you to say, what is one thing that I wish I could change about my circumstances? One thing I wish I could change about my life. And I want you to figure out the first step of that goal and do that. I'm going to tell you one more story. I know this video is getting long, and I know most people don't even watch beyond the first 3 minutes. So if you're still here, I figure you're probably up for one more story. I hope you are. I just love having those of you who are here. I love having you here. I want to tell you how I started writing again after not writing for a decade. I was actually chatting with ChatGPT, and I was saying that the job I have is kind of boring. You know, it's the perfect job to have when you're over 60 and working from home. It's, you know, just typing emails. But I just felt so unfulfilled. And I typed into ChatGPT, what can I do? I don't start my mornings until mid-morning, like 10:30 is when I clock in. And I said, what can I do to make myself feel a little bit better, you know, to feel like I have some agency or autonomy in my life, even though I have to work this 10-hour day. And so we started talking. When I say we, talking with ChatGPT about how my mornings could look a little bit more fun. And so I talked about, you know, creating space for devotions or taking my dog for a walk. And then I said, you know, the one thing I wish I could do more than anything, the one thing that used to bring me so much joy was writing. And I mean, I've been writing this newsletter on Substack, and before that for a newspaper in Breckenridge for 8 years. But I said, you know, the one thing that brought me the most joy was writing a novel. And so I said, you know, what if I could start doing that every morning before work, just for 10 minutes, just 10 minutes. And so eventually I got the courage up and I started doing that. And that's how I started writing my novel. And I am now 55 pages written in my novel. It's coming along, 1 page a morning. It has made all the difference in the world. I am so much happier in my life because of that one thing. That one page that I write every morning makes me feel like I have agency, ownership in my life. That was my way of changing things in my life, right here, right now. And that has made a huge difference in my feeling of happiness. So tell me one thing you can do, one change you want to make in your life. You're starting over. You're getting unstuck. What's one thing you can do? I love our comment section. We have the most amazing community of men and women, mostly women, but men and women. And they're all ages. They're ages from 20s all the way up to 70. And I'm so happy you all are here. I can't tell you how happy I am that you are here. So we're now on a weekly schedule. I will see you all a week from now, Thursday. And I hope you're as excited about this as I am. Tell me what you want to see more of. And also, somebody said they wanted to see my house. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to link to my Instagram. My Instagram account is the same name as my YouTube account, Suzanne Elizabeth Anderson on Instagram. And I've posted pictures there of my house and where I live. And so if you want to see where I live, and if you've gotten here to the 21st minute, you deserve to see where I live. So there you go. Thank you so much for being here. I love making these videos and connecting with you. God bless you. I'll see you next Thursday, a week from today.